Morning, third graders. Today is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. And before we get started with our reading lesson for today, I just wanted to remind you guys to continue your hard work on your Math iReady diagnostic. You should be working on it for 15 minutes every day. So by the end of today, you should have about 60% of your Math iReady diagnostic finished. You should also be setting aside some time every day, if you have not already, to finish your reading iReady diagnostic by the end of the week. We don't want those to start over when you've already put so much hard work into it already. So here we go. Let's get started with today's reading lesson. Today's reading objective is to be able to describe the cause and effect events of the Native Americans of the Southwest. So as you watch this video, you will need a piece of paper and a pencil to take notes on the different events as I read aloud. So if you don't have those things, go ahead and pause the video now, go get them, and come back when you are ready. You'll also need a Chromebook or a tablet to take your exit ticket at the end of today's video. Our to-do list for today is to review cause and effect, read the read aloud, which is Native Americans of the Southwest. Then we will practice finding clue words and cause and effect in our read aloud. And then I will review the exit ticket with you guys. So cause and effect explains why things happen. So some of the clue words that we're going to look for as we read today are because, then, if, so, as a result, and when. We've already talked a little bit about because and so. So these are some more of the other words that can hint to us that we're seeing cause and effect. Cause means that something is done. So I put all of my cake ingredients into a bowl and mixed them together. That was what I did. The effect, or what happens as a result, was that I got a delicious strawberry shortcake. Here's our vocabulary for today. The first word is adobe, is a sun-dried brick made of clay. The clay material from which such bricks are formed. So there's a picture of those clay bricks. Arid, not having enough rainfall to support most vegetation, or very dry. So here you'll see a desert that's very dry or arid. The next word is mesas, land formations with high flat tops and steep sides, similar to plateaus, but smaller and higher, like raised tabletops. So here you'll see the mountains are high with raised flat tops. And then our last word is pueblo, villages of building made from flat stone or sun-dried clay bricks. So then you'll see the pueblo. So first things first, before we start our read aloud, we need to make sure we draw our cause and effect boxes. So go ahead and take out your piece of paper and pencil and draw your graphic organizer. At the top, you're going to draw two boxes that say cause and effect. And then underneath those two boxes, you're going to draw another box, an arrow pointing to the right, and then another box. For today's lesson, you will need 3 of these graphic organizers. So go ahead and pause the video here and draw out your graphic organizers, and then press play when you're ready. More than 3,000 years ago, in the American Southwest, groups of native peoples began to move away from a nomadic existence of hunting and gathering to early forms of farming. In particular, they began to grow crops such as corn and squash. However, in such a dry and arid region, these early people could not survive by farming alone. While the land could provide some additional food, the people in this region continued to hunt and gather with simple tools such as clubs, hunting sticks, and spears. Archaeologists believe that some of these early peoples may have inhabited natural caves, but most lived in pit houses. In addition to experimenting with crops, they began to hunt with bows and arrows. As we read this next part, see if you can identify the cause and effect relationship. Approximately 2,000 years later, some groups of native peoples in this region began to develop more sophisticated farming methods that included the use of irrigation, the ability to channel water to crops. Now that it was possible to grow crops more successfully, these native peoples became committed to the areas where their crops grew. As a result, they began to settle in one place. This meant that Southwestern native cultures began to develop and thrive. Some of these groups of people included the ancestral Pueblo, the Magayon, and the Hohokam. So now going back to our chart, the thing that happened, the thing that was done was that it was now more successful to grow crops because because of irrigation. So what was a result of the irrigation being more successful? Right. In the read aloud, it said, as a result. And remember, as a result is one of our key words, one of our clue words that we're seeing cause and effect. So I'm going to highlight it. So as a result, what happened? The Native Americans stayed in one place to live. Now let's go back to our read aloud. The Mogollon inhabited the mountainous areas of southwestern New Mexico and east central Arizona. They diverted streams so that they could water their crops and may even have experimented with ways of storing water. The Hohokam inhabited the desert areas of what is present day southern Arizona. They built a network of channels that channeled water to their fields. This type of early engineering helped these people overcome the challenges presented by their environment. This read aloud focuses on the ancestral Pueblo who lived in an area of the Southwest that connects present day Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. This area is often referred to as the Four Corners. So as we continue on with the read aloud, make sure you're listening for the cause and effect relationship. The ancestral Pueblo lived throughout this region. Many lived in the dry valleys near smaller rivers or waterways. Having struggled with the challenges of living in the drier valley areas, some then moved onto the raised plateaus and mesas. Just like the Mogollon and the Hohokam, the ancestral Pueblo developed ways to divert water from streams and rivers to irrigate their fields. So now back to our chart. What was the cause? What happened to the Native Americans? Right. The Native Americans had trouble living in the dry valleys. So think to yourself, what was the result of them having trouble living in these dry valleys? Correct. In the read aloud, it said then, which is another one of our clue words. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight it. Then they moved to the plateaus and the mesas. Let's see if we can find one more cause and effect relationship in our read aloud. Okay, so as we continue to read, listen closely because this part of the read aloud is going to also be included in your exit ticket. There were many reasons why some of the ancestral Pueblo moved up onto the greener mesas. There were trees growing on these mesas that provided the native people with shelter and wood. Because mesas are raised flatlands or plateaus, they received more sunlight than the valleys below. The mesas also received more rain and snow than the valleys, making them a more ideal environment for growing crops. However, whether you lived on the mesas or in the valleys, they were able to have a larger food supply. As a result, the ancestral Pueblo population increased and their culture developed. Now, thinking back to that part of the read aloud, let's think, what's something that the Native Americans did? Right, the Native Americans moved up onto the greener mesas. So now we need to figure out what was the result of that. So going back to our keywords, because, then, if, so, as a result, or when, what were some of the clue words that you heard in that read aloud to help us figure out the result of them moving up onto greener mesas? So here's where we're going to take a look at your exit ticket for today. Here's the text of the read aloud that I just read to you. So if you need to go back and read it, you can. We said that the cause was that the ancestral pueblo moved up onto greener mesas. What was a result of them moving onto the mesas? That is your first question. Make sure you write it in a complete sentence. Then the second part of your exit ticket is, what are some of the clue words that helped you find your answer? So going back to our presentation, what were some of the clue words that we said help us identify cause and effect? Okay, third graders, have a great Wednesday, and we'll see you tomorrow.